$9.5 million purchase price.
Yep.
Meaning 45% is what you raise, so 4.275 million, and the rest is a mortgage. So far, so good. So that's year one equity, call it. By year 5, we're expecting to sell this for $15 million. Again, that's just a projection, right? But that's in line with what we'd expect.
Yep.
Because we're forcing appreciation by increasing the property, we're making it more efficient, better cash flow, and as a function of that, it will get more valuable, and then we'll sell it.
Hey guys, it's Caleb Williams with It is interesting to me.
First off, debt is a function of your assets.
All right, guys, I don't need to make any introduction because I have one of my good friends, Brad Hart. Not only has he been on the show before, we've actually done a workshop together and Genius Network in Arizona. We had a blast. Brad, you've spoken at a couple of my events, and you are an amazing human being that has so many great frameworks, from masterminds to how to invest your money to health. It's someone that, April and I have stayed at your house when we were in Arizona, and just very, very grateful for who you are and how you show up. And so we're going to be talking all about investing frameworks and different mental models. And those of you that know myself, know Brad, we're in for a treat. And so welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Caleb. And thank you everybody for listening. I hope you got something really beautiful out of this. And I'm grateful to continue to do life with you, brother, as things continue to evolve and change, and just keeps being awesome. I appreciate you, man.
One thing I really respect about you is you get things done, and you also, I think of you as a framework guy. And I just love people that can just explain things concisely, but then also have a way of thinking and almost have a system of thinking, and aren't so emotional about this thing and that thing. And it's I just think of you as very predictable and someone that I can rely on. And so with that, man, whenever you reach out, it's always a yes. And so would love to take a back seat and kind of hear what you've been working on. And I know for some people that are listening to this, there's opportunity to plug into what you're up to, and we'll share that at the end. But would love to just hear what things you've been working on and what frameworks that you've been working through.
Thank you. Yeah. And there's an old saying, I'd rather have a framework than hard work. And frameworks they're never done, right? You always have iterations that happen. But I'm always listening to biographies, and with the sole outcome of, I want to understand how somebody thinks, right? Whether it's Ben Franklin or Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or whoever. I'm on a Walter Isaacson kick if you didn't get the thread there. But whoever it is, I want to understand how they think, which made them able to be successful. And it's not a exact science. There's an old saying also that 99% of effort's wasted, but you can get that number down on the wasted effort if you start with a framework and work from there. So without further ado, I think to frame the story, why do I care about the things I care about? We'll give people some context, and then we can dive into some frameworks. How's that sound?
Love it.
All right, fire away. So I was born on Long Island. My dad was a lumber truck driver. My mom worked in delis, and my dad got hurt driving his lumber truck when I was about 2 years old, so he couldn't work anymore. By the time I was 5, mom had to leave to go find work. And I remember being 4 years old, locked in my room. They're screaming at each other about money. And it was just a really hard thing. And I somewhere in my brain, I linked up that if we made enough money, mommy and daddy wouldn't have to break up and mommy could stay. And that drove me very hard for many years to just make a lot of money. And it got to be to the point where I was 26 years old, and made $1,040,000 in a single month running my hedge fund and profit. And I was like, oh, wait a second, the spell was broken. This is not where I want to end up. But earlier than that, even when I was about 16, something happened. And it was kind of a destiny thing for my family, where my grandfather's a World War II veteran. I'm rewatching Band of Brothers because it's now on Netflix. So I'm really excited about World War II right now. He was stationed in the Pacific, came home, built a life for himself, built his own house, worked with my grandmother to build a family, and my dad and my uncle, and they just had a really nice little lifestyle there. And when he went into his later years, we had to put him in the VA home. And as a function of the VA home, they burn through your assets at a very rapid rate until such time as you are broke, and then they put you on Medicaid to cover the rest. And that's how that tends to work. And our family tends to be long-lived. We didn't want to take that bet that grandpa would be left with nothing. So we transferred assets out of his name and into my dad's name. But first we had to find them all. And here's the rub. We didn't know that grandpa had serious assets. We figured he had some cash. He had a car or two, or he had his house. Turns out he's worth about $2 million. We're like, where did all his money come from? Because he never did anything that was a super high earner. So we're like, wait, this doesn't add up. Like, where's all this money? And it was spread out into a lot of different brokerage accounts and had been split, and there were dividends. And like, we ended up having to play this Sherlock Holmes detective game of figuring out where's all this money and where did it come from? So I'll spare you the trials and tribulations, but the end of the story was his father, my great-grandfather, was very wealthy. He was worth about $100 million in the 50s, which is $1 billion today. No question.
Wow.
You know, and thousands of acres of land, a lot of orchards and things along those lines. And the story goes, at least the way it was told to me, that they were estranged. So he changed his name. He didn't want to be involved with my great-grandfather, and he went his own way. His uncle felt bad that he wouldn't get an inheritance because the guy ended up leaving all his money to his Colombian maid, who went off and left and was never heard from again. So my great uncle Al gave my grandfather Standard Oil and Bell Telephone stock way back in the day for like a very low cost basis. And he said, forget you own it, live off the dividends and never sell it. And he did. So he held on to the stock, and it became $2 million worth of ExxonMobil and Texaco and AT&T and Southwest Bell, and then eventually, Verizon and a bunch of other things, because they split, multiplied, and dividends and all that great stuff. And he just lived off the dividends. And my grandfather, he liked to drink whiskey and he liked to smoke cigarettes. And every 2 days, he would go down and buy his whiskey and cigarettes. He'd get a carton of smokes and a bottle of Gentleman Jack every 2 days. And that's how he liked to live his life. And he never made an ostentatious show of wealth, but he had plenty of money. So I was like, one generation, a great decision, a poor decision and a great decision. And then I saw my dad take it over and whittle it down to almost nothing in 8 years. When he passed away when I was 24, I'm like, wow, this is mind blowing. Like, great decisions compound, bad decisions can confound, really, when you look back. So the first framework was, we got to zoom out. So if you're at home taking notes, which you should be, just so you can remember some of the stuff and hopefully utilize it in your own life, is zoom out, right? When in doubt, zoom out, right? People think on a monthly or quarterly or even yearly timeline, but they don't think in terms of decades. They don't think in terms of lifetimes. So definitely zoom out. And I had to be real with myself. I'm like, what if I live to be 150? That could happen, right? How fast do I want to be financially free? And how much time am I willing to dedicate to that? Right? It's no longer a time crunch. If I'm 38 and I'm going to live to be 150, I have 112 years to figure it out. But I want to be financially free by the time my kids are old enough to be bouncing around. I want to be able to go travel and do stuff like that. So that was the first shift for me that made me have to decide, like, what am I going to go after? Because I did the hedge fund thing. Like I said, I made a bunch of money, but it wasn't fulfilling. So I went off and I did the Make More Marbles thing to get the fulfillment. Now I've had the fulfillment. It's like, okay, how can I combine these two into a vision and a mission and a purpose that increase hope, increase excitement, I'm emotionally bought into, and lower anxiety and fear. So that's another framework. Without a vision, people perish, right? Yeah. So you need to have that compelling vision that you continually come back to, and will evolve over time. But the vision for now is, I want to teach everybody what I've learned, going through thousands of conversations with financial experts, people like Caleb, people who have been around for 50 years doing this thing, learning the lessons of great people who have done amazing things and wealthy families who have done amazing things that they do not teach in school, which, if you've been following Caleb for any length of time, you get how that works. The life insurance thing is a great example. Like, the Rockefellers are rich for a reason. And the Cornelius Vanderbilt family is shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. His mom just died broke. Anderson Cooper's mom, who was a Vanderbilt, just basically died broke and gave him a very small inheritance compared to the, what would be by today's standards, billions of dollars that they made in their lifetime. So, if you want to end up on the former end of that channel, then the latter end of that channel, you want to start to investigate things like life insurance, right? And see how that can work for you. But that's not the only thing, right? It's not just one thing that makes a lot of sense. And I want to make sure that people understand the things that can actually move the needle for them, but don't take up a lot of time and don't require a lot of maintenance. And you maybe set them up once and then you forget about it. Stuff like my grandfather with his stock portfolio. So when I met Caleb had a great framework, and I'd love for you to share it. It's the "what can money do" framework. Really, there's only 2 things. You want to share that with us real quick?
Yeah, I mean, money really can do 2 things when it comes into your economy. It can be consumed, burnt up, spent, whatever you want to say. It's like, when the whole concept is, when you lose $1, it's gone forever. Or it can be saved, which is a verb, for the future, and hopefully you can invest it, multiply it, be a good steward of it. But at the end of the day, whether it's you or 10 generations later, that will be consumed at some point. So we're all going to consume. It's just choosing how much you're going to consume and save.
I love that. And what's the biggest consumption item that everybody has?
Majority of people, especially that are friends of ours, are taxes.
Yeah, they're going to pay the most in taxes of anything else, right? It's not their lifestyle. It's not their habits. It's not even their investing. It's the tax.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of the easy and normal things you could do to change up your tax profile, move to another state, change the way your company's structured, change how much you pay yourself, et cetera, et cetera. But there's also things like life insurance, which are tax-free generational wealth, right? Like every time you have an heir that dies and you 10x your wealth or whatever it is from the last generation, tax-free, that adds up, right? So there are ways to go. So if you can lower your tax burden, that's kind of step 0, if you will. But then I think you need to be focusing on income, right? And you're going to get way richer making $10 million a year than making $100,000 a year, even if you make a ton of mistakes investing, right? So that's the next thing. So lower your consumption, increase your income. And then finally, it's my 3 buckets, right? So I call it the security, the growth, and the risk bucket. And then I walk people through in this program, which I'll tell you about in a minute, called Investing Made Simple. How do you set up these buckets, right? How do you get these going? And I pick a specific asset for each bucket for you to start with that you could set up once and forget about. And you get the benefits of diversification in your portfolio. You can shift this based on how old or young you are, whether you have a family or not, whether you're conservative or more aggressive, younger, older, what doesn't matter, right? It just gives you a framework to be like, okay, if I spent 5 or 10 hours setting all this up, I can do no maintenance or very little maintenance or check on it maybe twice a year, and then it'll just do its thing. And I just put money in and it's good. And it can direct debit from your bank account and you're good. You could do more than that for sure. Yeah. But if you just get that baseline together, you're going to be ahead of 95, maybe 99% of people. So this program called Investing Made Simple, it was kind of born of doing our money mastermind together, Caleb and I at Joe Polish's office. And that was great. That's still available as a recording. But we wanted just to make this little quick start course. It's 100 minutes long. It's, nice. I think, the best thing I've ever created because it's just so concise and so simple and so paint by numbers. It's like spend 5-10 hours, get all this set up, go back to work, right? Easy. And you can go and check it out at marbles.link/Caleb. We have a special deal worked out for people who are in your audience. It's marbles.link, marbles.link, LINK /Caleb. So marbles.link/Caleb.
And Brad, we'll make sure that the link gets in the description for people listening or watching.
Yeah. And it's not as expensive and we guarantee it. So if you're like, you watch this and you're like, this isn't for me, or it sucks, or I hate you and give me my money back, and then we'll absolutely refund it. But I think you'll be very pleased. So you can go over and check that out. So that's that. And that's the baseline. Now, here's the cool thing I haven't even told you about personally, right? You have news. I have news. Do you want me to share my news?
Yes.
Okay. So as you know, we build masterminds, and over the years, we've helped launch a lot of masterminds. And one of our friends, Stacy, okay, let me back up even a little bit more. I went to NLP training back in about 6-7 years ago. It was master practice 2 weeks long. The first day I show up on my motorcycle, this other motorcycle pulls in behind me with, this dude has like sleeve tattoos and a big old Harley. And I'm like, yo, bro, nice bike. And she pulls off her helmet and waves her hair around and says, thanks, man. And, that was Jen. And we started a really fun conversation. We became fast friends. So Jen, her background is she worked at Home Depot and Target as like a warehouse person. She would help them build out their warehouses in new locations, right? So similar to Costco and different places, there's just some stuff that shows up at different times and you're like, oh, this is an up and coming neighborhood. Like a Whole Foods would be a good example of that. So she would be the person to make decisions like that. And she was in charge of all these teams and did really well in corporate, 20 plus years, and then got out of that. Stacy, her wife, was a real estate trainer and had a specific methodology. And she'd been doing this for more than 20 years now, where they would purchase multifamily real estate in cities they've never been to, completely virtual. They have a team on the ground. They never have to go there, and it's completely hands off. And I was like, that is mind blowing, because most of the time real estate's a job. And just like our 4-step framework we described earlier, 5-step framework, it's really important to have the frameworks, but also the team that can help you implement the framework. So it's not all on you. Right. Yeah. And the thing they came to teach at my mastermind was how to do virtual multifamily real estate investing. And it really blew up. And they're like, I love this mastermind concept. Can we start a mastermind? And I sent them some referrals. They got like 150 grand from my referrals. Those people went on to do some cool stuff. A guy who grew up with Bobby has a bunch of properties now in the Midwest. Andrew Cruzy sold his company, did like a 450 unit deal with them. So, it just really started to gain momentum. And now for however many years they've been running it, they're doing like 5 million a year with their mastermind, which is incredible. Wow. It's awesome. On top of that, they've accumulated well over 2,000 doors worth of real estate in a very short time. So it's like awesome. And it really works. And they really got it going. So we were catching up recently. I went to their place in Orlando, and they've got 4 kids and a dog, and just like a crazy life. Like they've got a lot going on, but they're like, we're kind of capping out on the fundraising side, and we could use some help with that. And, I'd raise money for hedge funds and charities, and I have kind of a system by which I raise money for different projects. So they were like, well, let's chat about potentially working together on this, because they have like 10 or so of each person, right? So on a real estate team, there needs to be an acquisitions person that finds the deals. There needs to be a fundraising person that finds the money. And there needs to be an asset manager that manages the asset. So that's a team of 3 at the core base, right? There can be more people, but 3 is the core base. Like we want to have 100 teams doing these 3 things. So that's 300 people. And they have this whole Roman Empire theme for their business. It's called the Warriors of Wealth. And I'm speaking at WowCon in November. You can get a ticket over there. But the idea around this was, let's do the Spartans, where it's 300 members. I'll be in charge. I'll be Leonidas leading the Spartans. I'm mostly in charge of fundraising, but we all do everything because it's like a Spartan shield wall. So everybody's in charge of underwriting. Everybody's in charge of making sure the deal works. Everybody's in charge of, making sure we don't get blindsided by some uncontrollable thing. And we bring the money, and it ends up being pretty sexy. So I don't know if this video is going to be shared along with this audio, but I have a document here, which I can kind of walk through what it would look like. If you want.
No. See if you can for sure share.
Okay, cool.
We have a large group of people that will listen, and we'll do our best to talk through it.
Okay, great. So let me find out how to do that. Bear with me 1 second. I just had you. Where'd you go? Oh boy. Okay, I found you. Okay. If I hit share screen, thank you. Okay. Fundraiser. Share. Okay. So this is just one deal, right? I want to be clear. These can range all over the place. There's a million.
And just to also be clear, non-investment advice.
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Brad or I are not giving tax, legal, investment advice.
We're not your financial advisor. Yeah, 100%. We're sharing our own examples and our own stories, our own numbers. These could be wrong. I could be wrong, but this is one deal as reported by Jen. So $9.5 million purchase price.
Yep.
Meaning 45% is what you raise, so 4.275 million, and the rest is the mortgage. So far, so good. So that's year 1 equity, call it. By year 5, we're expecting to sell this for $15 million. Again, that's just a projection, right? But that's in line with what we would expect.
Yep.
Because we're forcing appreciation by increasing the property. We're making it more efficient, better cash flow, and as a function of that, it will get more valuable, and then we'll sell it, right?
Part of the 9.5, I'm sure that's not all just by the property. It's part of it is to remodel it and make it better, correct?
Yeah. So part of the fundraising is typically to like you said, force appreciation. So
I see appreciation goes up. I'm tracking so far.
So there's that. So let's say you were raising all this money, right? You raised $4.2 million, and that would give you a certain percentage points. There's the GP side, so the general partner, and the LP side, the limited partner side. So in any type of fund, for example, there's people who manage the deal, and there's people who just write a check.
Yep.
And the people who write a check, their liability is limited to the amount of money they have in the deal. The general partner technically has unlimited liability, but that's another story for another day.
Yep.
So that's how that structure works. So as a fundraiser, you're part of the GP, and there's 9% of the 100% of the whole deal that's carved out for the fundraiser. So if you were to be the sole fundraiser on this deal, your equity compensation, if you sold at the end of this 5 years, would be $500,000. So far, so good. In addition, you're getting cash flow. So these are just the projected profit numbers for the 5 years. So you started about $300,000, and you're going to end up with $535,000. And your portion of that would be $29,000 to $48,000, or an average of $41,000 a year. So you're getting a $41,000 check in quarterly disbursables every single year, which you can either keep, put in your pocket, you can reinvest as an LP, you can roll it over, whatever, put it in another deal. It doesn't matter, right? And at the end of the rainbow, you're getting a $500,000 check because you're 9% of the owner, right? So that all in is about $700,000. But here's the other piece. You also get an acquisition fee. You get a disposition fee when it sells, and you get an asset management fee, which under this model, we split 3 ways, right? So everybody's incentivized to be a part of this deal and to make sure that they do the underwriting and make sure that no weird stuff happens. We train everybody how to do this. This isn't something they have to figure out on their own with frameworks and all that good stuff. But the cool part is you can actually get into these deals and raise money. And if you want to be on our Spartans team, you just got to raise $2.5 million a year minimum. or you could just send us referrals. That's fine too if you can't commit to that. But our goal is to raise it to be 300 people. So that's what I'm working on. So here's if you were to raise $100 million, just because I like to see scale. You're looking at
I like round numbers,
Yeah,
100 million.
I like round numbers. And by the way, $100 million could be one conversation with a private equity firm. It doesn't have to be individuals you run around 100 grand at a time, but you could do it that way too. It would just take you longer. That would be about 16 million in compensation, less net of fees or any compounding.
Yeah,
so, pretty good. Anyway, so that's what we're working on. That's what I wanted to share.
That's awesome. So you're essentially one of the areas that you feel called to share is just saying like, hey, there's investments out here, and you can, if you want to put a little sweat equity, you could potentially get part of the deal. Now,
you end up being a real estate owner.
Let's talk about the difference between an LP and a general partner.
Yep.
Obviously, there's pros and cons to both. Like usually, being a general partner, you get some better perks as it relates to financially, but that usually comes with a little bit more risk. So, how do you break that down, and how do you explain the pros and cons to people?
Yeah. So again, this is early days. We're just getting rolling here. They've been doing this a longer time than I have. I do have real estate experience. I worked in real estate in New York. So I would defer to them on very specific questions, but I'll answer what I know and I'll kind of defer on what I don't know. So what I know is that as a GP, you have more risk, meaning if the deal goes south, if something goes wrong, it's your ass on the line. So you want to protect yourself by being not just an individual in the deal, you'd be an LLC or some other entity that worst case scenario, if the deal goes south, your liability is limited, right? So that's thing one. Thing two is, everybody needs to have their head on a swivel to make sure that the deal is the right deal, right? That the numbers make sense, that the projections aren't weird, that all the due diligence is done, and they're not bringing assholes, for lack of a better word, into the deal that are going to make problems for people, right? There's investors that are easy and fun and great to work with, and there's investors that'll make your life a living hell if you let them. So you shouldn't get too deep with people before you do some deals with them. You start small with people and you roll in and you get some track record. And if they're cool and you're cool, then you keep working together. And if not, you just cut it off. So that's a couple things. As far as the LP side, that's a better place to be in reality, is like you get way more for way less and way less risk. But that's also not everybody can write $100,000 check. So that's the other thing, or it might not be appropriate for the size of investments that you're looking for.
Yep. What is your thoughts right now? I'm going to play devil's advocate of real estate with these high interest rates. I know some people in the multifamily space, and what they're saying publicly is maybe different than what they're saying privately. And it's not like they've ever changed their opinion on multifamily. It's just less attractive. What is your thoughts on that? And how do you see the asset class right now?
Yeah, it's a great question. So let's kind of zoom out to the whole market, right? So there's a single family market, there's a multifamily market, and then there's like kind of commercial, which is a much bigger deal. I'm kind of looking at single family and multifamily. On the single family side, there's a lot happening with subject to and creative financing, where you're taking overpayments, especially for people who have bought houses between 2018 and 2022. You can get into a mortgage for a lot cheaper than what they're offering now. So like, for example, we bought our home in 2021. We got a 2.5% mortgage for 30 years fixed, which is nuts. Like anybody would love to take that over, and I'm never going to pay it off, because why would I? It's free money with inflation. Like, why would I do that? So that's like the one extreme. On the multifamily side, they're starting to do more creative financing deals because, like you said, the interest rates are just very high, and you're going to need to stay in those deals longer, because if we have a crash, that's a problem. You got to be able to wait through that. And if you want to refinance, you don't have as many options, right? Because you're going to have to be getting money from the private markets if the interest rates are too high. And by the way, my grandfather had an 18% mortgage. Like, it can get that high. So, just be wary of that. As far as the market as it sits now, let's just zoom out again. There's always good deals in every market. There's always people that need to sell for different reasons than just, I'm trying to get the most money, right? There's always people that are willing to make deals in every market. And there's always people that have varying levels of pressure to make deals in every market. And people die, right? You can inherit an asset and then you're looking to get rid of it. And maybe you're not trying to maximize the best deal. You're just trying to get rid of it. So like, there's all kinds of reasons why you can get a good deal in any market, regardless of interest rates. And if you can raise your own capital at preferable terms versus going to a bank, that gives you a lot more flexibility. So that's kind of where we are at, is like, start with a deal. That's where the most important piece is. If there's no deal, there's no point in raising any money, and then go from there. And looking to do enough deals and volume And it's, by the way, just the single family equity market is like, there's $10 trillion in equity out there. So it's a huge market. It's just having that pipeline and that deal flow. So if we have 100 teams of people working on it, then we'll have a lot more to play with.
I love it, man. I love it. What other things are working on right now, just in your world?
Yeah. So, I mean, marbles, we teach people how to build masterminds at makemoremarbles.com and buildamastermind.com. That's been really fun to continue to do. We're growing that. That's kind of like the cash flow now thing. The biggest, I would say, mindset shift that I had was I always had a someday mentality with real estate. And then with AI and learning about creative finance, learning about these types of structures that I just explained to you, I was like, I don't need to wait. Why do I need to wait? I just start doing it. Right. And that forced me to be like, oh, well, how could I get a little less active in my main business, start to bring up some of the people like Chris, for example, who's been my client for 5 years, at 600 clients of his own. He's ready to step up in leadership. How can I get him more into the mix so I could step away and build something that's more, creating wealth instead of just building cash flow? Because if AI starts ruining businesses or changing businesses drastically in the next 3 to 5 years, I'm tired of chasing and having to figure things out again and again. I'd rather just have an asset that pays you, right? And
so you're all in on AI and figuring out how to use it in business now.
Yeah, for now, like, it's going to be a huge disruptive force, and it's going to get crazier and more geometrically expanding. But I want to be in a place personally where, regardless of that, regardless of what happens with businesses, I will have assets, I will have wealth. And it's based on something that people are always going to need a place to live.
Yeah.
So that's where we're up to, man. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I love it. Masterminds, systemizing your investing, ways to think about money, frameworks, multifamily real estate. I love it, man. And love getting the updates on your end. And also, if you're someone who wants to learn about masterminds, or if you want to incorporate a mastermind in your business, or if you're like, I feel like I have something here that a mastermind could enhance, I'm literally talking to the guy that could put a lot more clarity, zoom out, a lot more clarity as it relates to what that could look like. So you want to speak on, if someone's interested in learning more about that, how they can learn more?
So yeah, what is a mastermind? A mastermind is a high ticket, high touch, leverage group program that you can run that could be a core offer for your business. That does, you can add 6 figures to your bottom line and 5-10 hours a month of ongoing, right? So versus one-on-one coaching, versus events, versus books, versus memberships and courses, hands down, I believe that's the core offer, in my opinion. We teach people how to build them because it's the best way to optimize your message. It's the best way to create intimacy. It's the best way to scale your business. And anything else you do could be a way to funnel to that. So we have a few different offers there. We're currently about to run, I don't know when this is going to go live, but September 25th, 2023, we're running a Craft Your Mastermind Offer Challenge. You could go to craftyourofferchallenge.com. That's craftyourofferchallenge.com and sign up for free for that. We are doing a event called Mastermind to Millions, which is the event I went to learn how to do this with my mentor, Jay. Now we're business partners because I was successful. I lived the promise of the event. I made millions doing masterminds. Now I teach people to do it too. And Jay and I partnered up. I brought him out of retirement. Now we do this event twice a year. So that's coming up in October. That'll be October 5th through 8th. That's virtual. So you can do it anywhere you want. In your living room, in your underwear is fine, but maybe put on pants so you can be on camera. And we'll teach you how to fill, how to launch, how to fill, how to run, and how to scale your mastermind to 7 figures. It's pretty straightforward. It's a 3-day event. So those are the 2 items I would say for masterminds. If you're like, hey, I want to get my investing sorted out, which will be a lesser number of you, but that's something near and dear to my heart, you go to marbles.link/Caleb, check out that program that we talked about. And then finally, if you're like, I'm a badass, I want to raise a bunch of money and help you take over the investing world of real estate and have exposure to real estate and assets in real estate, you can just reach out to me directly. That's brad@makemoremarbles.com. And you can apply to be one of our Spartans. So that's the 3 calls to action for you, depending on where you're at, what you're looking to do.
Amazing, Brad. Well, thank you for coming on the show, and just appreciate you and appreciate what you're up to.
My pleasure, Caleb. It's always awesome. And I'd love to just hear your thoughts about these things and what you're thinking as far as your own kind of lens, because I really respect your opinion about, how things go. And you've built a really cool business, and you're a pretty young guy. So it's always great to get your perspective too. So I'd love to take a few minutes if you're not in a rush.
Yeah, no, I love what you talk about is frameworks trump hard work. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I've been looking into systems and just figuring out how we can create more systems for our clients. And whether it's modeling, whether it's tracking money, like majority of people aren't even tracking where their dollars are going. And it sounds so simple, but it's like those that track it control it. And also just really investing for long term, like investing in intentionality and investing in like what really matters, because I've always had this mindset, but the more and more I've just kind of like, seen what's going on, I've realized that there's a lot of people that are they're divorced from what they truly want and showing up and living to what they're doing. And a lot of times they're taking other people's advice about everything. So it's like, you just laid out a really attractive thing about real estate. And what I would say is awesome. There's some people that should for sure do that. There's some people that should not think about multifamily. Yeah. They shouldn't think about real estate in general. They shouldn't do masterminds. There's some people that literally should stop everything that they do and do masterminds. So it's like, it's so difficult, because it's like, I have people like Dave Ramsey out there that stick to their 7 baby steps, and that's their all time, because they stay consistent. They say the same dang thing over and over and over again. Yeah. And I'm always like,
when you're building a business, is if you stay on message, you're going to compound, right?
Right. So that's where you asked me what I'm thinking about is creating principles within that, because I think the problem with how I think is it's so customized to who I'm talking to, where I tend to have really good conversations with people, and I tend to have, like it's nothing is scalable / like viral.
You could really use some 7 baby steps, but not that, obviously.
Yeah. And so we have that. And one thing that I'm working on is a show called Naked Numbers, and I'm essentially inviting people to come on our show, talk through their financial life, or ask me questions. And I'm just excited to incorporate that into more of the content that we do, because I think it's going to be really, really cool to see people like show you how we actually speak into people's lives and the principles, because it's not a wake up and see what I'm thinking. It's like, I actually am very predictable. And so it's showing that through and highlighting what we do for people day in and day out through coaching and serving them. So man, I'm fired up and excited, and there's a lot of exciting things going on.
And just a +1 for that. Like, I love you guys. I love Jeremy. I love, Dan and all the people that work at BetterWealth, Mariah, everybody on your team is amazing. You've made such an incredible impact on my life and our clients and the people I refer you to. I always like to joke, like, I've talked to 200 life insurance agents, and 99% of them have been full of shit or greedy, or both. And there's only 2 people I refer people to, and you're, the bulk of that. So it's like, it's really exciting for me to continue to build a relationship with you and see you continue to make these shifts and build communities of masterminds and the life insurance mastermind and all this cool stuff you're doing. And, I'm excited for people to check out the Money Mastermind too. So when people buy the course, they have an option to upsell into the Money Mastermind recordings as well, which is exciting. And that's for a price that's a steal, because you'll get so much value. It'll blow your head off. Like, we had $5 billion acquisition people there. We had people who've done 400 exits. One guy sold his first company when he was like 13 years old or 15 years old or something like that. So like, it's just wild stuff and stuff that you won't learn in school or anywhere else, really.
Yeah. I love it, man. I love it. Well, appreciate you, and look forward to seeing you continue to grow.
Thank you, Caleb. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you got something awesome about it. Leave a comment below and let us know what your takeaways were.